Welcome to Admire, the Art of Business, hosted by Admire Itai Myra, also known as Ziva. In these episodes, we intend to showcase the immigrant communities, people who are doing fantastic work in their varying areas of expertise, whether that be healthcare, big corporates, philanthropy, entertainment, some community work, and other sectors. We have many unique individuals doing incredible work out there in their respective communities. However, we don't hear much about their achievements. Therefore, it is time to shed light on their success stories. We want to bring them to the table, speak to them about their career progression from where they started to where they are now, discuss the challenges they faced and the strategies they employed to overcome them in order to showcase the great work of immigrants in Australia and beyond. Our goal is to inspire the youngsters and people who have personal goals, who may think that they don't possess what it takes to achieve those goals. However, after seeing someone else achieve, strive, and overcome on their way to success, they will believe it's possible for them. You can do it. All that you need is to focus, the attention, a little inspiration, and hard work goes a long way.
Viewers, welcome again to Admire the Art of Business. Your host, Admire Itai Myra. We're back again. Today we've got a special guest, a man who is in properties. He wrote a book. He was a nurse. We're just trying to go back, but he has accomplished a million things. The man migrated from Zimbabwe, and within a space of 10 years within his migration period, he managed to buy 15 properties. Yes, you heard me very right. 15 properties. This man is called Sanders Muleya. Sanders, welcome.
Thank you, Admire, for having me. I am excited.
Beautiful, man. It's good. I mean, give me a handshake. It's good to see someone, face to face like this, because I've been seeing your adverts. I've seen, your works that you're doing on social media, promoting your business around. You're doing a good job in there.
Yeah, thank you very much. We pretty much trying to educate everyone around investments. Obviously we may be talking about property here today, but there are different investments. It's always nice to be doing your job, or at least you've got something that you're actually targeting that will help you financially.
Wow, investments. Okay, money for the future.
Yes.
I know I'm going to be talking about your book a bit later on. So you're saying you buy your 10 properties. After that, you go home, you relax. Money is coming in the pocket.
Yeah, look, what I learned with the Australian government is that as long as you are able to stand,
yes,
they will make you work.
Oh, wow.
So you can even work up to your 70s if you are still energetic. But then when do you then enjoy your life? So it's pretty much you're going to be working the rest of your life. But then if you have something that can sustain you, then you don't have to be forced to work.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right, this is now. Let's take you back in time. Where were you born? Where did you grow up?
That's a very nice, very nice question.
Yeah.
So I was actually born in a town called Binga.
Okay.
It's one of the poorest areas in Zimbabwe. It's in Matebele North. It borders Kariba and Gokwe. So my father migrated from Zambia, and he's a Zambian.
Okay.
Yeah, my mom is from Gokwe. So I am a mixed breed.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's where I was raised up, and I did my primary and secondary education in Binga before I then transitioned into nurse training.
Okay, but how was life like in Binga? Do you want to describe a little bit in terms of how you grew up in Binga? How was life like?
So Binga is one of those remote areas where culture is being adored. So the lifestyle is quite hard, but it is nice to grow up there because you are cultured as you grow. So my father was a peasant farmer, and my mom never worked at all. So we were all brought up around farming. We managed to go to school, and whilst we were selling whatever produce was produced from the farms. So you couldn't afford a uniform, so we could go to school barefoot, and even books, we couldn't even afford books. Initially in grade 1, 2, up to probably grade 3, we were sitting on the floor and writing on the floor. That's how we actually grew up. Yeah, so it's only after independence that things changed a bit. But yeah, living in Binga was really very, 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 very hard.
So between grade 1 and grade 3, you are in class, you don't have any book to read on, you're writing on the ground. But you transition this thing right now. You wrote your own book. How great is that?
Yeah, it's actually amazing how things change when you persevere. Obviously, that time I was young, I never knew something like this could actually happen. Yeah, but the teachers in those olden days, they were also very, very, very strict. You couldn't be late to class. You know, your parents could allow them to actually beat you if you misbehave. So I think that's another way that actually helped us grow and realize what life is all about.
So do you feel the sense of discipline that was instilled in you when you were growing up is actually helping you now navigate, this country that you migrated into?
Yeah, because when I look at it back now, things that people call that they are too difficult or they cannot be navigated, or there are problems. For me, I don't call them problems. I call them challenges because I've actually gone through worse off situations. So I think that experience that I had, it really helps you when you face more difficult situations.
So in your family you grew up, how many siblings do you have?
So it's a very interesting story.
Yeah.
My father was a polygamist.
Okay.
So he was married to 5 wives.
Okay.
And the entire family was 35 children.
Wow.
But from my mom, it was 2 boys and 2 girls. And out of the 35, I don't know what happened. I'm the only one who happened to go up to high school. The rest were either dropouts or, they could get jobs and maybe get married and never really took school seriously.
Was it because Sanders was spoiled in there? How come you're the only one who managed to get to secondary school?
Yeah, when I look at it now, I think it's because I was very obedient. I was always close to my father, and my father never left me alone. So whatever I was doing, I was learning. And then he actually saw how enthusiastic I was, and he did help me in every way that I actually wanted. I think that's how I managed to be the only child.
Wow. So even now, because by that time you were always like next to dad, you learned quite a number of things there, with dad, like life skills. Is that right?
Yes. So I learned a lot of farming skills. I learned a lot of hunting. We could go into the bush and hunt. I remember one day approaching a lion. When I was very young, we could hunt animals as big as buffaloes.
Wow.
So I think that was another initiation that really helped me a lot. We could walk long distances, and then obviously working very hard. I think all those experiences changed me as a child and changed me as a man as I actually grew up.
Wow. That's an interesting background in there. I'd love to talk more about that. So what then made you from there to want to study nursing? Is that when after your high school, you started nursing?
So after I finished my secondary education, I actually chose nursing. But before then, my father got very sick. He was admitted into a hospital, and I actually happened to visit him with my mom, and I loved the way the nurses were caring for him. And then I thought, I think one day I should actually do this.
Wow.
So when I I graduated from school, I straight away applied for nursing, and then I was very lucky to be taken into the nurse training, and then I went to Wange Korea Hospital. That's where I did my nurse training.
Oh, wow. Was that the cultural shock coming from being going to Wange Colliery for the training for the 3 years? Was there difference in terms of,
No, not really. Binga and Wange, there isn't much of a difference, except that I was now going into a sort of a town, living a town life. But before I even went to Wange, after I finished school, I got a temporary job with the Binga District Council. And then they sent me to some of the remote areas, during the Gukrahundi area, during the Gukrahundi period. And then I was living in a police camp, and I was always escorted around when I was doing the work. And I remember one day that I was actually nearly killed because 30 minutes I had left, the crow head of the same area was actually assassinated. And I was told those guys were looking for me.
What kind of job were you doing then?
It was an administrative job. I was actually supervising people that were, creating roads or maybe creating dams using, artificial tools like holes and So it was sort of a development project.
For the community?
Yes. So again, that was part of initiation, which actually made me more and more resilient.
I want to know, how did you get that job for the Rural District Council?
So to get that job, there were so many applicants. And then, I don't know, for some reason, they actually chose me to actually get into that job. I think because it was very risky. No one really wanted it.
But you were very young then.
I was very young and actually fresh. So
don't worry, you're still fresh. Okay.
Yeah, so once I heard about that story, then I ran away straight away and got to the Binga Center. Then fortunately, the following day, I received a call that I was admitted into nursing.
Wow. Wow. Then there you go now with Wange Colliery, right?
Yes.
You're nursing for 3 years.
So I did my nursing at Wange Colliery and then went on to do midwifery as well.
Okay, that's like postgraduate.
Yes,
education.
Yes, yeah. And then after that, I worked in different areas. I worked in Kamativi. I worked in Binga. I went as far as Chirezi. I worked in Chirezi. I worked in so many different areas.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. So how many years did you work in Zimbabwe after you graduated as...
So I graduated in 1989.
Okay.
And then after that, I worked until 2003.
2003?
Yes.
Wow. Is that when the time now you're looking at, I want to migrate from Zimbabwe?
So what happened then around 1999 to 2000, the economic situation in Zimbabwe changed drastically. So I could see that there was no future for myself. There was no future for my kids. So this is when I started applying for jobs abroad. So I just wanted to get out of Zimbabwe. So I applied in different countries, but I was so fortunate that Australia was the first country that actually responded. So that's how I ended up migrating to Australia.
Wow, wow, that's quite interesting. Viewers, this is the man that grew up in one of the remote places in Zimbabwe. And due to obedience, learning like social skills, fast forward, buying 15 properties within 10 years in Australia. That's amazing. Okay, you landed here in Australia. Okay. How was your experience when you landed in Australia after you got the job?
So before I actually traveled to Australia, I had issues with how I could raise money for the airfares, for the visa, and for the registration as well.
Yeah.
So I didn't have much in Zimbabwe, but I thought, what then can I do? So I had to sell pretty much every item that I had. so that I could raise that type of money. But also I had a family. I had my wife and 3 kids. So I sold pretty much everything and left them sitting on the floor, and they were lying on the floor. But I knew that I was actually paving the way for them. And then, so I traveled first. I left my family back home, and I landed at the airport with $50 in my pocket, and I didn't know anyone in Australia. So I was then sent to Westmead Public Hospital. That's where my employment was. And there I was, for the first time landing into Australia, knowing no one, not even knowing how the system works. Yeah, it was very, very, very challenging.
With $50?
Yes.
This is inspiring. $50 you're landing in Australia, you don't even know nobody.
Yes, so it was a very big challenge. And then I was told that you won't be paid until after 2 weeks. So they were fortnightly payments. So I had to survive on that until I had my first salary.
So how did you survive for those first 2 weeks with $50?
It was very hard. I remember eating at McDonald's, because I could buy meals for $2 or $5. I couldn't afford anything.
Wow.
So yeah, when you are faced with challenges, somehow you just have to do it.
So we go back in time. McDonald's used to have like a full meal for $2, $5.
Yes, it was very cheap by then.
interesting, isn't it?
$5 was a lot of money to actually buy something.
Wow. Wow. So $50, 2 weeks, you get paid for all the shifts. But this is the finance part of it. Let's look at, now we are walking into a hospital. Hospital, it's a big hospital, right? And it's fully equipped, right? And the equipment that is in there, if you compare that to the hospital that you're working back in Zimbabwe, were they the same? Were they different?
I think before we even get into equipment, it's just the culture and the language that is actually spoken. The medications are the same, but the names are always different. Somehow here they use more trade names than generic names, while it is back home we're used to using generic names. And then in terms of equipment, obviously it is new and it is all different. But the good thing is you were actually trained. They had to train you how to use the equipment before you could actually work. So that's how that actually helped me a lot.
You mentioned about culture and language. How did you say about language? That's hard.
Yes, that is very hard because small things like calling someone Mr. Muleya.
Yes.
Here you call someone Sanders. So those are small things that, I remember calling a lady by her surname and she was screaming at me. And I thought I had done something so badly.
Wow.
You see, so those are small things that, you actually have to actually adjust. And obviously I had that respect all the time, trying to do everything through respect, while it wasn't working very well. And you had to work very, very, very swiftly and very, very fast.
Wow. What about the accent, the Aussie accent? How did you manage to get that on quickly?
So that's another frustration where you try and pronounce a word, someone says, I can't hear you. And then you repeat again. It's like I'm saying the same word. Why is this person not actually getting it?
It's so frustrating,
So
isn't
it's really so frustrating. And then you think maybe, there's actually something wrong, until you then try and adapt to it.
Yeah. But what about when the Aussies are speaking, right, to you? Was that clear to you, or
to me it wasn't a problem hearing them. It was the problem them hearing me.
Okay.
Because remember our English training in Zimbabwe it has been very, very academic.
Yeah.
It is actually the British style of training. So our English is very, very, very fluent. So I could hear the whatever they were actually saying clearly. But then for me to articulate and say what I'm saying, it was a bit difficult.
So you're telling me that the education, the academic English that you were learning back in Binga, in that remote place, is the same language that you're saying is quite great when it helped you out when you migrated to Australia?
Yes, Zimbabwe, we were learning the Cambridge English. So throughout the Zimbabwe, like, as you know, all countries around Africa, they would send their kids to Zimbabwe for education, countries like Botswana, South Africa, because the education was very, very, very valued. So, that's why we are able to work anywhere. If you talk about any Zimbabwean that was educated in those olden days, they can fit into any system.
Great, beautiful. All right. First 2 weeks, $50 in the pocket. The man is struggling with the culture. The man is struggling with, people, you're explaining something. Someone's, oh, I beg your pardon. What do you mean? Sanders, this guy's not respecting you, right? Calling you by first name. Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, look, it's actually you need to learn things. Like what I've learned in life now is I actually travel a lot. Not because I've got money. I'm traveling to learn how other people live. When you see how other people live, you then appreciate. Okay, so if you don't travel, you think that wherever you are, that is the best of the world that you have. So similarly, if you don't learn how other people live, their culture and things like that, then it is actually hopeless. So I knew it was a learning curve, so I had to learn.
Persevere.
I had to actually persevere, and I knew it was a temporal setback, and one day I would be on the top.
And you're on top right now. I can see that, which is a good thing. Which is a good thing because we're talking about people who came to Australia, migrated here, and that transition part of it to me interests me a lot to see, the challenges that people met, and the things that they put in place so that they can survive the challenges. Is there any strategies that you talk about right now that made you to survive? I know you spoke about the education, right, which you managed to get to Zimbabwe. Is there anything else that you put in place so that your transition gets better?
So I think what really helped me, because I was living here by myself without my family that they only joined me a year later. So to survive, I knew I had to get occupied. So I had to find a second job so that I'm completely immersed in work. And then I don't have enough time probably just to come home and actually sleep. So that's how I then negotiated my way out, because I knew if I stay home, then I won't have anyone to talk to, and then I won't be occupied. So, and then working 2 jobs as well meant that I could raise more money to actually bring my family to Australia.
Wow. And you said you talk about a year for family to join you over here. Okay, when they came here, were they quite happy? I mean, when you established already?
Yeah, when my family joined, it was more difficult again, because the kids were young, and we had to send them to school. My wife had to find a job. So, and then so we work in 2 jobs each, but then making sure there's someone looking after the kids as well. So when one was coming in, the other one was actually going out. So that it was so stressful. And but we persevered. We knew what we wanted. We didn't want to divorce because of that. But everything actually worked on very well. But for the kids, it was a bit of a struggle initially, changing schools, having new friends. But once kids adapt quickly, and then they actually loved it.
Okay. All right. So after, your missus is here, did she take time for you to get a job? Or?
Yeah, it took about 3 months for her to get a job, because by then they were looking for experience, of which she obviously didn't have a experience in Australia. But the good thing is she was already registered with the nursing council. So her first job was from a nursing home, and then from there she then transitioned.
Oh, okay. But then she's still registered nurse and takes 3 months to get a job.
Yes, it was. Those days it was a bit difficult.
Wow.
To actually get there was a demand for nurses.
Yeah.
But even though they were always looking for experience, to say how much experience do we have in Australia. So it was harder to get a job in a hospital, but it was easier to get a job in a nursing home.
In a nursing home. Wow, wow. And then this is the time whereby you were, you're going to work, madam is coming as well, then you're doing the handover. you finish handover at work, you're doing a handover at home as well.
Yeah, it was really very, very, very challenging. But as I said, we knew it was a temporal setback. We knew what we wanted. The first thing we wanted was to buy a family home. So we had to raise money to actually buy a family home. That was in 2006, 2 years into Australia, because we wanted our kids to live in a very good environment.
But Sanders, you're 2 years down the line. You're thinking of a house already. What was happening in your mind? It's only 2 years.
Yeah, look, I don't know. I think it's this upbringing that that I actually told you that I'm that person that always persevere. When I see something and I want it, I make sure I actually get it, no matter what. So I think even back home in Zimbabwe, I remember building a house, transporting building material from Wange to Binga on a bus, and I actually managed to do it. So I thought, well, it's actually easy up here. So, obviously it was blood and sweat, working 2 jobs, saving a lot of money just to be able to buy a family home.
So did you do a lot of education on the first home that you bought, or you just went there haphazardly?
No, because it was a family home, I thought I didn't need much education. All we wanted was choosing a suburb that, was actually good enough. All we wanted was really a family home. I didn't need a lot of education about it.
But how do you know it's a good enough suburb? You just got here like 2 years. Were you going around the
Well,
place?
I just drove around. I looked at the houses that were there.
Like this or like that. Yeah?
Yeah. Look, sometimes it's better to make mistakes than not to try at all. So for me, it was just making sure that we buy a family home, whether we have made a mistake or not. It wasn't a problem.
That's powerful. It's better to make mistakes than not to try at all.
Yes.
That's powerful. That's yes. I love that. But then you bought the first property. There you are. Right? Did you enjoy that? Like the family, they like, okay, wow, look at that. What an achievement. We're here now.
Yes, so now we knew we had a nice home to live in. And then the next year we wanted to buy our first investment.
Investment property?
Yes.
The third year you're in Australia?
Yes.
You're buying investment property?
Correct.
Guests, enough years. Please, let's take a break. Because I think Sanders right now, he's out of his mind. Thank you. We'll be back very soon.